Yo, what is going on, guys? Winner Kills here, and welcome to a brand new deck profile video for January of 2023. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the updated version of Speedroids. This deck list I did have a chance to briefly show off in episode 28 of the Saturday Night Locals series. It was really fun seeing the comments on that video, seeing a lot of you guys pointing out all of the new things in this deck, alongside a lot of the things that were missing from the deck as well that are normally in a typical Speedroid list and in the extra deck as well. So it was really fun reading those comments. I was really hoping to see a lot of people noticing just how, again, completely different and unique this build is. And I owe the credit to this list 100% to Aerosol TCG. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to him for not only sharing with me this deck list, but allowing me to share with you guys the profile on my channel. He sent me the list on Discord a few weeks back. I had an opportunity to test it out for the first time ever on my stream. By the way, link to my Twitch channel down in the description, streaming every Thursday and Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern to about 10:30 p.m. Eastern, so check that out if you haven't already. But I got a chance to sort of give this list a test drive, and it was quite difficult at first getting used to some of the lines, especially the lines that involve Rubber Band Shooter, because so many things are so different. There are so many cards that I'm used to being in a normal Speedroid deck that aren't in this one, so it really forces you sometimes to kind of think outside of the box. And it was hard for me because my brain had it so engraved on how to play this deck based on previous versions. So very excited to share with you guys this list. Again, shout out to Aerosol. We do have plans, mainly he has plans for this deck post Photon Hypernova, so there will be an update then. Whether it'll be from him or me, not entirely sure yet. But a lot of exciting things to come. Super excited to share with you guys this list finally. We'll also be doing some test hands toward the end as well. And I think that is pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Also, after I had a chance to play this deck at Locals, where I ended up going 3-1, I think I got 6th place out of 40 people. We were able to get into a Discord call with each other. And the main reason we wanted to do that is because he wanted to basically give me the reasonings behind the card choices and basically tell me how we kind of got to this list, you know, what were the reasonings behind certain choices. And thanks to that little conversation we have, I can kind of reflect some of those ideas that he shared with me to you guys. So also, quick shout out to Imperium Duelists. This is their new Legacy Cloth playmat. I'm sure it's probably sold out by now, but if it's not, definitely get your hands on one as soon as you possibly can. Extremely soft and cushiony fabric. One of their best playmats I think they've probably ever put out, and it's very reminiscent of a vintage playmat, and I like the aesthetic of that very much. They also sell amazing sleeves, deck boxes, dice, and binders, like the sleeves that I'm using on my main and side deck. So if you want to pick any of that stuff up, check them out at the link below, and don't forget to use my discount code WinnerKills off at checkout. And do not forget to use my TCG Player affiliate link down in the description of all my videos as well. So hopping right in into the profile here. Sorry about the delay, but I have to give credit where credit is due to the man, the myth, the legend. But yeah, we have 3 copies of Tekka Tomborg. No matter how you build this deck, this guy is like one of the mainstays of this entire deck and probably will be for quite some time. The opportunity just to be any tuner in the deck and then it turning into an extender at that point is just phenomenal. Then we have 2 copies of Car Turbo. Still really good free level 3 tuner extender. And with the Kashtira engine that you guys have already seen that's in here and the Ascendant of Thunders, this being a free level 3 tuner helps us climb into Baron de Fleur, on top of making other, you know, Link 2 plays, or we can also make Synchro 7 plays with this, pairing with other level 4s that we have. But yeah, very strong card, and like it at 2. Also the Graveyard Effect, not to mention, is still just as clutch as it ever was. And then 2 copies of Denden Daigo Duke, a card that will probably still always remain at 2 in a deck like this. I did try to cut it down to 1 in some cases, but the second one pretty much always does come up and is always going to be needed. And then we have 1 copy of Terror Top because, you know, you gotta play Terror Top. Although we're really never special summoning Terror Top from our hand with this particular build, because it does conflict with the Kashtira engine, and the Kashtira cards are some of the best part about this entire deck currently. So a lot of times you want to hold this for your regular normal summon or your additional normal summon. Although there are definitely some hands where you can still spec it to the field for free, just like you could in the old days. But now it's best kind of left as a normal summon as opposed to a free special summon. Then we have one Fukimadoshi Piper. This card is insane, and Aerosol put it best. This is single-handedly the only reason to really choose to play this deck right now. There are a lot of other synchro spam potential decks out there like Sword Soul, but Speedroid Fukimadoshi Piper really sets this deck apart in that it just basically allows you to dig for free combo pieces and extenders or side deck cards and hand traps at pretty much any given point in your combo, and that really gives this deck that little bit of edge that it needs to kind of separate itself from a whole plethora of other different spam type decks. So yeah, Piper is just an absolute MVP. And then the man himself, Double Yo-Yo, finding his way back into the deck list. And the main reason he put this card back in here, I believe, was for more options for non-tuner bodies, because I think one of the problems he ended up running into is that oftentimes he felt like he had too little non-tuners, if I recall correctly. Also, the level 7 play where you banish the 7 to reveal Terror Top and Yo-Yo, that just comes up quite a bit more often in this particular build. And it's just a great recovery option as well. So yeah, that is it actually for all of the Speedroid monsters in the main deck. There are no Marble Machines in here. There are no Ultra Hounds, and I know that might be a little bit difficult to kind of comprehend. I know it was for me at first. I pretty much always played Speedroid with Marble Machine or Ultra Hound in the deck at some capacity, and it was a little weird, I gotta admit, seeing the deck without them. But when he explained it the way he did, it kind of made a lot of sense. So specifically, we'll talk about Ultra Hound, which I know a lot of people in the Speedroid community had mixed feelings on Ultra Hound. I really like the card. It was a one-card rubber band shooter. It allowed you to get great follow-up. Wasn't a once per turn effect to send something on normal summon. Really solid card all around. But when you compare it on a very basic level to something like Tetherwolf, you start to realize that Tetherwolf, especially in a build like this, is just way better and greatly outclasses a brand new card like Ultra Hound, even though this card is 8 years old. So the level manipulation effect that Tetherwolf has, it says it gains the levels of all Mecha Phantom Beast tokens on the field. So the Mecha Phantom Beast token that it summons is level 3, so it'll gain 3 levels, putting it to level 7, which synergizes greatly with the Kashtira stuff, you know, all being level 7s, giving us access to some rank 7 plays, mainly just Dracosac. So that's the first point that it has going for it. Secondly, it is one card that generates 2 bodies to basically get into free rubber band shooters, much like Hound does, but this does not require an engine requirement. And that was one of the biggest selling points for him when it came to playing this card. And that's the same reason why the E-Tele engine, as good as it can be sometime, was ultimately cut from the main deck because of the engine requirement problem. And yeah, it was one of the biggest problems kind of plaguing Speedroids for the longest time. There's just too many engine requirements. So cutting those things out of the deck, as good as they can be sometimes, I think definitely was something the deck needed in the long run. And that's why you won't see any Ultra Hound in this particular deck list. Now, same thing for Marble Machine. Marble Machine is a pretty good card, but the one problem that Marble Machine has always had going for it is the fact that it is a one-card body that can get you into Rubber Band Shooter, but it always does force you to burn an extender in the form of Car Turbo and Tekatomborg, which in some cases is not as good as you may think it is. And it also would require us to change up the extra deck by playing level 5 synchros and level 3 synchros, which was not in the best interest for this particular build. So yeah, 3 Tetherwolf and no Ultra Hound or Marble Machine. I hope I explained that to the best of my ability. And if Aerosol shows up in the comments, he could possibly answer some of your guys' questions as well. So moving on, we have the Kashtira engine. First and foremost, we have 3 copies of Kashtira Unicorn. I can't wait for this card to become an ultimate rare. I hope it doesn't get like limited before I get my hands on a playset, because that would suck. But you know, Konami's Konami, they'll do anything, regardless of how you know, good or bad it sounds, right? But 3 Unicorn, this card is absolutely insane. It's really good against the tier limit matchup, only so long as they're playing 1 Kick Hollows, which a lot of builds are kind of mimicking the OCG builds and playing more than 1, at least before Kick got banned anyways. But yeah, so this card in that particular matchup, not as good, but there are still valuable 1-up targets that hit in their extra deck, like Kaleido Heart and Rokalos, even if they get to keep the Kick Hollow. So this card puts in a lot of work. Searches a Monster Reborn. And that is also one of the biggest pluses about this card, for reasons that you'll see a little bit later when we do some test hands. And it's also a win monster. Like, that's one of the biggest pluses. There are some lines where you can take with this deck where you use Rubber Band Shooter's additional normal summon effect to slap this guy onto the field, search out Birth, bring back a Fenrir or whatever it may be, and keep playing from there. And speaking of Fenrir, we do have 3 copies of Fenrir. I know this guy is very, very pricey. And we also have the 1 copy of Birth. So basically, anybody that cannot afford currently the Kashtira engine, which is a pretty pricey one, I would recommend playing more traditional Speedroid with the E-Tele engine, like builds that I've uploaded in the past month or so. And if I remember, I'll link that particular video up in the top right for you guys to check out, as I think that build is still a very, very solid build if you can't get your hands on the Kashtira stuff or just don't want to get your hands on it. So 3 Fenrir and 3 Unicorn. And in the extra deck, we're also playing double Baron, mainly because these are such valuable targets to be able to bring back out during the standby phase while still keeping another Baron on the field. So yeah, really pivotal part of this entire deck now, and only will get better come post Photon Hypernova. And now moving on, we have 3 copies of the Ascended of Thunder. This was a little bit of a last minute idea from Aerosol. He was still playing the E-Tele package when he thought more level 7s is better, and I could not agree more. I loved using this card over the course of the tournament and in my testing online on my stream on YG Omega. Ranked ladder, this card was really good. A lot of people just outright don't expect it. It's a free extender without using your normal summon to get into Draco Sack, which is really important for some of the lines. And outright, sometimes just a free 2700 beater that you can slap onto the field and isn't a once per turn. The biggest downside, of course, being the 3000 life point cost you have to pay to slap this guy onto the board, but it's definitely more than worth it at the end of the combo. And playing 3, obviously, just to see it as fast as possible. And I believe going forward, post-Photon Hypernova, these will be cut for other cards. Then moving on to our spells, we have 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. The extra deck, being the way it is a lot, more flexible now, allowing you to consistently resolve this card for even 3 to 6 cards, which I think I pretty much always resolved this by banishing 6 when I was playing in tournament with this deck. And it felt really good, and that's one of the nice things about things like Marble Machine being gone and Hound, is you don't need things like Cork Shooter in the extra deck, as good as those cards are, or Hound, or Cork Shooter, Hagoita, or Chambara, or Kite Drake. Those oftentimes were cards that you couldn't really afford to get rid of because they just came up so much, but now that they're not there, we have a lot more flexibility, and a card like this can be played, which is super important for boosting this deck's consistency, something that was very much needed. And also, with this particular build, not playing things like the E-Tele package, not playing Speedroid Wheel, which me and Aerosol both agree is still a really good card. It comes at the cost of playing certain unsavory engine requirements, mainly Red-Eyed Dice. I'm looking at you. That was one of the things that was always holding back Wheel, in my opinion. Although, I think the card is still really good, is one of the things that was holding it back. And with cutting cards like that, we can add in something this deck hasn't been able to play in quite some time, which is a really healthy hand trap count. And I gotta say, it was really refreshing to finally be playing a deck with a lot of hand traps. So we have 3 copies of Effect Veiler, 2 copies of Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, because Spot Negation is still really strong. 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, very, very good against Fluandereeze, Sprite, and Kashtira. 2 copies of Ash Blossom, because Ash is just Ash. 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird. This card was a little questionable for me at first. I was like, do I really want to main Droll? But kind of happy that it was in here, especially since Fluandereeze can be as tough as it is, especially now this deck is not as wind-oriented as it was before the Kashtira stuff, so having Droll to help combat the Flu matchup is nice. And then 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, because Imperm is just Imperm, and this card still continues to be a really, really strong card. So that is it for the main deck. 40 cards, should be 40 cards. Now we're going to take a look at the extra deck where things get a little bit more interesting. First and foremost, we have 2 copies of Mecha Phantom Beast Draco Sack. One of my favorite pieces of the extra deck, because this is like one of my favorite cards ever in terms of Xyz monsters. But it's basically just budget Auroradon, summons 1 less token, and helps us extend really, really well. And obviously we can get into this with the Ascended of Thunders, the Tether Wolves, or any of the Kashtira cards, since they're all level 7s basically. And this is very, very easy to make. Not to mention, there were some lines that we saw in testing when me and Aerosol were playing each other. A line that he had basically came across that he'd never come across before, where he actually used 2 of these in the same sort of turn. The first he summoned to use its secondary effect to tribute itself to pop a card, and then with the help of the Kashtira cards, he was able to then climb into a second one to continue comboing. So sometimes going into boards, 2 will actually come up. Most of the time going first, though, the second copy is just Prosperity Food. So really versatile card for this deck, and really love seeing it in here. For the links, we have 1 Praise Velga, the Desperate Doom Eagle. This card is really great against here. There are a lot of lines where you don't end up using your additional normal, so you'll have like the Rubber Band Shooter and a leftover body, so you can just link climb into this, and being a free quick effect DD Crow is really good this format, who would have thought. And then we have 2 copies of High Speedroid Rubber Band Shooter. This card's definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. This card is still crack. Also, the 1 Dracosack could also be Appaloosa. I know Aerosol was also playing Appaloosa. But, you know, the second Dracosack, as we've talked about already, can and will come up sometimes. For the Synchros, we have 3 level 6s, 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, 1 Raptite, and 1 Juju. Level 6s are still very, very good in this deck with the level 3 tokens and level 3 tuners that we have. Raptite being a DD Crow, free draw, and basically free spot removal. All very good and very useful cards, even in this new age build of Speedroid. And then where the deck gets a little bit different is our level 7 Synchro pool, where we have 1 FA Dawn Dragster, 1 Clearwing Synchro Dragon, 1 Wind Pegasus Adagnister, and 1 Clearwing Fast Dragon. Now, the Dawn Dragster might be a little confusing to people because it is not a wind monster. I know, shocking, right? Although it definitely could be a wind monster. Yeah, there are some lines where we take with this deck where we do not wind lock ourselves. We don't end up using Tekatomborg, which is the only card in the deck that really wind locks us. Card Turbo locks us only into wind effects, so we can still summon Card Turbo and still use this. Rubber Band Shooter only locks us into Synchros, so there again are a lot of lines where making this will come up, which is great because Speedroid has never really had access to a dedicated spell and trap negate. Now, you could argue for Crystal Clearwing Synchro Dragon, but that card is nowhere close as easy to make as FA Dawn Dragster is. Clearwing Synchro Dragon, this is basically your level 7 to banish off of Rubber Band Shooter, although it is really strong against the Kashtira matchup. And then we also have Wind Pegasus at Ignister. This card is still really as strong as it's always been. And Clearwing Fast Dragon. This card will oftentimes be a main piece of your end board, so very, very important card for Speedroids. Then we have 1 Shen Shen. This card arguably could be cut. There are a lot of matchups where this card is just outright not good. It's not nearly as good as it used to be back in the day. We kind of talked back and forth about how to replace this card. We're not entirely sure yet. Although it does like come up like enough times for this card to be worthwhile in here, so that's why we're still playing it. But Stellar Windwolf Rayette is still a very, very good substitute. And then we have not 1 but 2 copies of Baron de Fleur. Again, shout out to my friend Adam for letting me borrow the second copy here. But yeah, Baron is a card that we do sometimes put 2 on the board at once. Yes, its negate is only once basically per copy while face up on the field, so you can't get 2 Omni negates. It's not how it's worded. But basically we're using 2, 1 mainly just to bring back something from the graveyard. That's really about it, and it's mainly going to be a Kashtira monster most of the time, or it could be Fuki Madoshi Piper to dig into hand traps if you already have Kashtira cards. So it gives us you know, a little bit more utility and more freedom to use Baron standby phase effect if we have 2 of them. And not to mention, having a second one to summon out later in the game for the grind game is just huge because Baron is just such a strong card on its own. And moving on to the side deck here, we have a copy of Droll to go with the other 2 in the main. 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More because this is just a really, really strong card. 1 copy of Duster and 1 copy of Cosmic Cyclone for more back row hate. And then moving into the trap cards, we have 3 copies of Evenly Matched because this card also goes really hard in this format. 3 copies of Different Dimension Ground, and 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier. I'm really a big fan of cards like DDG and D-Barrier because this deck can kind of get hindered by Dark Ruler and other blowout cards. But if we get hit with Dark Ruler, we can easily flip something like D-Barrier or DDG to kind of turn skip them right back, which is really strong. So they would have had a really strong push with the Dark Ruler, but the floodgates we apply to them are going to kind of hinder that push or what they can do with it. So that is it for the entire deck profile, main deck, extra deck, and side deck. Now we're going to go ahead and shuffle the deck up and do some test hands. All right, so the deck has been thoroughly shuffled here. At least I hope it's been shuffled enough. So let's go ahead and draw into our first test hand of the video with this unique build of Speedroids. And hopefully I can do it justice. I'm still learning the ropes of this deck a little bit, so bear with me if I do make some sort of mistakes. So opening hand here, we do have, of course, Double Duke joining us, Pot of Prosperity, Ghost Ogre, and Kashtira Unicorn. So anytime you start with a Kashtira card, specifically Unicorn, it always feels really good. So we're going to start by special summoning the Unicorn to the board, and then we're going to activate Unicorn's effect to go ahead and search out Kashtira Birth. Want to go ahead and get this out of the deck before we end up using the Pot of Prosperity. So we'll just go ahead and cut the deck over here. We don't need to activate the Birth right now, but we're going to activate Pot of Prosperity here. And with the Prosperity, the banishes are actually pretty easy sometimes. Well, with Prosperity being activated, we cannot draw cards for the rest of the turn, so Stardust Charge Warrior is easily getting the axe. Shen oftentimes, like, never ever comes up. We could also banish the second, the second Draco Sack just like that, especially if we're going first. So easy, free 3 targets right there. And honestly, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and think about if that's exactly what I want to do here. Do I want to banish 3? If I wanted to banish more, I would probably banish Juju, probably banish Clearwing, and we could also get rid of the Doom Eagle. Those are another 3 that we could easily get rid of. Let's just go ahead and start with 3 here. I may regret this, but let's find out. Imperm, Double Yo-Yo, and another Ghost Ogre. These are some very interesting reveals, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Double Yo-Yo. I think I want to take the Double Yo-Yo. I actually have to think about this for a second. Yeah, let's go with the Double Yo-Yo. We'll go with the Double Yo-Yo. Or, actually, you know what? I'm going to go with the Imperm. And this will all make sense here in just a moment. We're going to go with the Imperm, though. Trust me, we're going to go with the Imperm. So we'll get access to the Double Yo-Yo later. So now we're going to normal summon the Duke. And we're going to go ahead and link 2 into Rubber Band Shooter. So this all looks pretty simple, obviously, right now, pretty standard. And now we're going to go ahead and activate Birth. Birth is going to go ahead and bring back the Unicorn. And then we're going to use the Rubber Band Shooter. And we're going to banish the 7. We'll banish the Clearing Synchro Dragon. And we're going to reveal that Double Yo-Yo. And now we're going to reveal the Terror Top alongside of it. So this is that standard play coming up here as it usually does. So I also need a dice or a die. Let's see what we can get here. So 1, 2, 3 will be Terror Top. 4, 5, 6 will be Double Yo-Yo. And we did roll a 1 there. So we get the Terror Top. The Double Yo-Yo will go to the graveyard. That is completely fine. So now we will use our additional normal summon on the Terror Top. And then we'll use the Terror Top effect here to go ahead and search for a Speedroid. We're going to add the Tekatomborg. And now we're going to go ahead and use Tekatomborg effect here to go ahead and summon itself to the field. And then we're going to tag him out into the Fukimadoshi Piper. And here we didn't have to go into Piper. We could have summoned Car Turbo and made like a level 6 Synchro. And then we could have also made a level 10 Synchro with the help of Duke. So that is another line, but I want to be able to resolve the Piper here to dig more cards deep. So we can dig another 3 cards here, revealing Tetherwolf, Ghost Mourner, and Moonlit Chill, and another Pot of Prosperity. I think here, in terms of follow-up, I'm trying to think would probably be the best to end up taking. We could take the Ghost Mourner as an additional hand trap because we'd have Imperm, Ghost Ogre plus Mourner. But we really don't have the best follow-up at that point, which would be more of my bigger concern. But if we take that, be 1, 2, 3, 4 interruptions versus 5. Let's go ahead and just take, we'll just take the Ghost Mourner here to make things a little easier. And then we're going to go ahead and Synchro 7 with those into Clearwing Fast Dragon. And we basically end on Clearwing Fast Dragon, Unicorn with Birth, with Moonlit Chill, Ogre, and Imperm. So we end up with 5 disruptions there, which is not terrible at all for such a very weird hand. I probably could have played it a little differently too. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We do have the Duke available here for an extender next turn to bring the Piper out, which is great. And we have Birth to bring back the Unicorn as well if we do end up losing it. But yeah, maybe I should have probably Prosperity for 6 to try to find a Fenrir or a Tetherwolf or an Ascended Thunder. But sometimes I'm a coward, okay? I admit it, all right? Sometimes I'm afraid to banish 6, even though I've done it quite a few times in the past. I don't know why. I'm kind of afraid that I'll end up needing something, but a lot of times it never ends up happening. So I just got to get over that. So we're going to go ahead and do another test hand here, and we'll see what we can kind of cook up with our next random hand. All right, deck has been shuffled. Let's go ahead and cut it and draw into our second test hand of the video. We draw Duke, Card Turbo, Mourner, Droll and Lockbird, and Tetherwolf. So this is a definitely a little bit more of a different hand here. So we're going to normal summon the Tetherwolf here, obviously. And then we're going to go ahead and use this effect to go ahead and summon out a token. I wish there was an actual Tetherwolf token, because I have all of the, and this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I have like all of the Mecha Phantom Beast tokens there is, but there's no Tetherwolf token, which is kind of bothersome. But yeah, so from here we have a few options. We could special summon the Card Turbo and synchro into a Baron. That's obviously a play we could do. But I think here we probably want to just straight up link into a Rubber Band Shooter. Or again, we could go for Baron. This play is a little risky though. That's the one thing about it that I'm not super fond of. Although if this does get hit with Imperm, we do have Card Turbo to extend and then link into Hraesvelgr, the Desperate Doom Eagle, so we would have that going for us. Would still be 3 disruptions, so not terrible. But here we're going to go ahead and banish the 7. Pretty standard. This doesn't come up all the time though, by the way. This line that we're doing right now where we reveal the Yo-Yo and the Terratop. We don't do this all that often, although it is a very good thing to just fall back on in some hands. In some lines where we do Draco Sack plays, we will actually reveal like a Duke and a Piper. That does come up quite a bit, and I've seen it come up quite a bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as is per standard. So we go ahead and get the double Yo-Yo here, which is great. We'll use our additional normal summon to bring out the double Yo-Yo. That's going to bring out the Terratop. And then we're going to use the Terratop here to go ahead and search out for Tekatomborg. And here we do have the opportunity now to make Dawn Dragster. Since we are not wind locked, we're only going to lock ourselves into activating wind effect. So we'll use the Card Turbo here, and then we can synchro these into FA Dawn Dragster. Summoning this in defense position I think is usually the best bet. And then we're going to go ahead and summon out the Tekatomborg. And Tekatomborg here can go ahead and bring out the Fukimadoshi Piper. And we're going to excavate just 2 here, which is not a whole lot. But it is better than nothing. We'll see what we can get off of this. So we excavate a Tekatomborg and a Tetherwolf. I'll probably just take the Tetherwolf for follow-up. And then we're going to go ahead and synchro these off into a copy of Clearwing Fast Dragon. So we end up just with the FA Dawn Dragster, the Clearwing Fast Dragon with Droll and Mourner in hand. And we do have follow-up there as well. So another very weird hand. No Kashtira cards, just basically standard Tetherwolf into Rubber Band Shooter lines. They're nothing super crazy, but I guess it's kind of good to show something like that off, since it kind of can reaffirm that the deck still has those standard play lines available to it. We haven't completely abandoned all of those classic play lines that us Speedroid players know and love, just by changing the deck up as drastically as we have. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the deck here and reset. And hopefully for this next test hand, we might do an additional test hand after this, just so I can try to show you guys some of the Draco Sack lines, as those are some of the coolest lines in this deck, and I personally like them the most. Alright, deck is shuffled. Let's go ahead and draw into our third test hand of the video here and see what we got. We have Tetherwolf, a copy of Duke. These cards have been glued to our hand. Ash Blossom, Imperm, and Droll and Lockbird. Alright, so for this hand, I'm not going to spend too much time going through it because it is a pretty straightforward hand here. We do have 3 hand traps to back up whatever play we make here, which is already like the biggest bonus going into this. But obviously we would start by normal summoning the Tetherwolf. We'd bring out a token, and then we'd go ahead and link off the token and the Tetherwolf obviously into Rubber Band Shooter. Now here, if this does get Imperm, we again still have 3 hand traps to be able to back ourselves up, which is always great. But here we'd banish a 7, reveal the Terratop double Yo-Yo, and sort of play that out much like we did with the last hand. So I don't want to spend too much time there going over something that we've pretty much already gone over. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly reshuffle here, reset, and quickly draw into another test hand since the Kashtira engine is being a bit shy. So let's draw. We draw into Tetherwolf, Unicorn, Tekatomborg, Duke, and another Unicorn. So this time around we're not seeing any hand traps, but a whole lot of engine. But this is exactly the type of hand that I wanted to draw here to be able to show you guys how some of these cool interactions work. So we'll start by special summoning the Unicorn, activating its effect to go ahead and search out the Kashtira Birth. And then we're going to go ahead and normal summon out the Mecha Phantom Beast Tetherwolf here. And we're going to use Tetherwolf to go ahead and bring out a token just like that. So we now have 2 level 7 bodies plus the token on field. So now we're going to go ahead and overlay both of our level 7 bodies for a copy of Dracosack. And Dracosack is going to detach the Unicorn, most importantly, and we're going to summon out 2 more Mecha Phantom Beast tokens just like this. And now we're going to go ahead and link off the token and the Dracosack into a copy of the Rubber Band Shooter. Alright, so admittedly from this position there is a lot of things that we could do here, and this is still the part of the deck that I do end up struggling with sometimes, but I'm definitely getting better with it. But there are a lot of play lines available here, and if you kind of let your old way of how you play Speedroids get in the way, you might miss certain lines, and you might always miss them just because you're so used to thinking one way. I know that's one of my biggest things. But right now we're going to use the Rubber Band Shooter, and we're going to banish the 7, and we're going to reveal not Terratop and Yo-Yo here, but I'm going to go ahead and reveal the Duke and the Piper. And you'll see why exactly I'm choosing to do this here in just a minute. It's basically going to make our Tekatomborg a little bit more versatile in what we want it to do. So now we're going to go ahead and choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll roll the dice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we get the Duke to our hand and we get the Piper to the graveyard, which is fine. We can use Birth now to bring back the Unicorn. We could have done that beforehand. Probably should have done it beforehand, so if they did hand trap us with like a monster, we could punish them with the Unicorn. But now we're going to use our additional normal to bring out the Dendendaiko Duke, and then we're going to Synchro 10 into Baron. And now from here, we can special summon Tekatomborg. We don't want to use its effect yet, though, because that will windlock us. But now we're going to use the graveyard effect of Dendendaiko Duke to bring out the Piper. We'll use Piper effect here to excavate for 5 cards. So we get a full excavate 5 here, which is always great. Anytime you can do that, we reveal Terratop, Ascendant of Thunder, Ghost Mortar, Moonlit Chill, Effect Veiler, and Imperm. So we get 3 hand traps to choose from here, or extenders. I would take the Ascendant of Thunder if we didn't already make Baron, so that's kind of off the table. Same thing with the Terratop. So I'm just going to take the Imperm, basically just a free hand trap there for us. Now we can go ahead and Synchro 7 into the FA Dawn Dragster because we have not windlocked ourselves yet. So we can make that free interruption, which we don't often get to make. Then we can use the Tekatomborg to tag into a copy of Car Turbo and make a level 6 Synchro here just very, very easily. And if we're playing against here, we might want to make Raptite, or we can make Charge Warrior, I guess, in some cases if we wanted to draw more cards, but we're just going to make Raptite here as a free form of interruption. So we end on Baron, Dawn Dragster, Raptite, Imperm, and we do have follow-up in the form of Birth. We have another Unicorn in hand to be able to play with next turn. And we have Baron, and if Rubber Band Shooter survives, we do have a decent amount of follow-up and a Duke already in hand. So, and the important thing about that play line there too, we didn't exhaust the Terratop Yo-Yo. We're not, like I said, always doing that. In some cases, we're going to do what we did here, revealing Duke and Yo-Yo, or Duke and the Fukumidoshi Piper. So we still have that bit of like explosive play available to us later, which is going to help us out greatly in the grind game. So I'm glad we got to showcase that. And we're going to do one more test hand here and see what we can show off. Okay, so since that last test hand there was kind of more of the same that we've showed off already, I figured I'd kind of hand pick a few cards and then draw some random ones to show off like the last test hand kind of. So the main 2 cards I wanted to show here was Fenrir and Ascendant of Thunder, and basically show you guys the lines that occur when you don't have to use your normal summon to get into Rubber Band Shooter. So we're going to start by special summoning the Fenrir. We'll activate Fenrir to go ahead and surge out a Unicorn. In this case, one of the random cards we ended up drawing was Unicorn. So we already kind of have that in play, but the more the merrier. Then we're going to special summon Kashtira and Thunder by paying 3,000. Importantly, that effect does not activate, so they cannot negate it with Rolkalos. So now we're going to go ahead and overlay these two into the Draco Sack. We'll activate its effect, but importantly by detaching the Fenrir. And then we're going to go ahead and summon out 2 tokens, and then we're going to link off the Draco Sack and a token into Rubber Band Shooter. And again, importantly, we have not used our normal summon yet, which is the biggest thing to take away from this. So we're going to go ahead and banish a level 7 here. We're going to banish the Clearwing Synchro Dragon. I always keep wanting to call it Fast Dragon, but we're going to banish the Clearwing Synchro Dragon. And we're going to reveal the Yo-Yo and the Terror Top. And we're going to do 1, 2, 3, Yo-Yo, 4, 5, 6, Terror Top. And we get the Terror Top to our hand. The Yo-Yo goes to the grave. Then we're going to use our regular normal summon to bring out the Terror Top. We're going to activate its effect to go ahead and grab the Tekitomborg. And then from here, this is where things can get a little bit interesting. We can use the additional normal summon effect of Rubber Band Shooter now, not to bring out something like Piper, but to bring out this Unicorn. So that is essentially what we're going to go ahead and do here. Obviously, one of the cards we're going to tribute off is the Rubber Band Shooter itself. We could also get rid of the token too. It doesn't really make too big of a difference. But now at this point, we can use the Unicorn to go ahead and grab Birth, which is conveniently on the bottom of the deck. And then we're going to go ahead and use Birth to go ahead and bring back the Fenrir. And we are not locked into wins yet because we have not used Tekitomborg or anything like that. So that is free to come out. Then we can go ahead and special summon the Tekitomborg. Now we'll use its effect, which means we can only special summon win monsters for the rest of the turn. And then we're going to go ahead and bring out Duke. And then we can use the Duke and the Terror Top to synchro into Stardust Charge Warrior. And then we're going to use Charge Warrior, of course, to go ahead and draw here. We draw into an Imperm, and then we can use the Piper in the graveyard, or well, the Duke in the graveyard to bring out the Piper. And then we excavate 2 more cards here. We're doing a Tetherwolf and a Duke. I'll probably take the Tetherwolf there for follow-up. And then we can go ahead and synchro 10 into a copy of the bar on the floor. So we end with Unicorn, Fenrir, Baron, and 2 hand traps, plus a Unicorn and a Tetherwolf to act as follow-up. And yeah, that was a pretty solid hand there. Decent, like, little showcase, I feel like, of just using, like, the level 7 engine to get into your Rubber Band Shooter without normal summoning. And you basically can kind of see how, like, the Kashtira stuff can mesh into the end board here, as we've done here. So Fenrir, Birth, Unicorn, Baron, plus 2 hand traps. That's kind of like the typical range for this deck, is you're going to always be ending on 5 interruptions, which for their 6 cards is pretty strong, honestly. And even if we get hit with the Dark Lord, we have the installation of having things like Birth and our 2 hand traps still being live through those really strong board breakers. So wanted to throw this in here. Even though my face cam did die, I wanted to throw this in here at the end just so you guys could see a little bit more of the things I didn't get to showcase by just drawing some random hands. So that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions or feedback, drop them down in the comment section below. Huge shout outs to Aerosol again for sharing with me this build and allowing me to share it with you guys as a result. And as always, Winter Kill is signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And last but not least, a big thank you goes to our current Divine level channel members who are Pony Star, Cadillacs84, HCH Cyber, and Mizfid. Thank you guys so much as always for extremely kind and very generous support of the channel.